Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome again to Risking It All with me, your host, Jake Bernardes. Today, I've got a really interesting guest. I try to find people from all different kinds of walks of life for different reasons, and occasionally I get someone in the security world who's just an OG, known throughout the industry, technical expertise and brilliance, and has worked for multiple years at one of the fastest growing and biggest, most complex enterprises that's come out of the tech world. He was the CISO at PayPal. He's now the CISO at Qualtrics. Equally a fascinating organization, and has a whole host of thoughts, experiences, and knowledge to share. Our key topic today, as we always seem to kind of have one, is more around this piece of automation with a flavor of AI. We're going a bit more technical today than we have done the last few sessions, so hopefully this will be interesting and fascinating. Without further ado, please bring Assaf Keren, who is the CISO at Qualtrics, and let's start the chat. Hi, thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. I can't complain. It's towards the end of my day. It's probably the beginning / middle of yours. So I'm probably happier and chirpier than you are.
Where are you right now?
In the UK. So I'm based in the north of the UK, in between Sheffield and Manchester, for anyone who has the regional knowledge of in between, and live in the Peak District. But also, you've lived all over the place, right? You're now based in Salt Lake, but you originated from Israel. Where else have you lived in the US? You've lived in a few places, right?
Scottsdale, only Scottsdale.
Okay, so Scottsdale, so Arizona.
We moved from the, yeah.
Okay. Arizona versus Utah, which one do you prefer? Or haven't decided yet?
That's. I thought you were gonna save the tough questions to the end. I don't know yet. We've been living in Utah for half a year now, maybe a bit more than half a year. It's been a great experience so far. Arizona is the first place and the only place we lived in the States before.
Yeah,
really love it. So I ask me that in a year, and maybe I'll have a better answer.
I mean, but most people know, for those who know, I lived in Salt Lake as well. So I think in the summer, I love Salt Lake more than Arizona, because Arizona is so uncomfortably hot. In the winter, if I'm not skiing, I love Arizona more because Utah is so uncomfortably cold. So it depends on what time of year it is. But anyway, why don't you give us a quick intro on yourself, your role, what you do, and then I ask the same 3 questions to everyone we have on, which is, who is your hero, what is your hobby, and what is the biggest risk you ever took in life? So yeah, go ahead.
Those are hard questions. Assaf, I've been doing security for 20-something years now. Maybe don't want to say exactly how many because I'll age myself. When people ask me what I do, I say security stuff.
Don't we all?
What I feel I'm doing everywhere. Been all around the place. Founded a couple of companies in cybersecurity. Led security organizations. Did manual security work, mostly in operations, but also compliance for a while. Was an auditor for about a year, which I don't think I put on my resume anymore. But recently, in the last 10 years, leading security organizations, most prominently in the security officer over in PayPal, the last 4 years, and then shifting into leading security over here in Qualtrics.
And your hero, your hobby, and the biggest risk you ever took?
Hero, I have a few heroes, and these are mostly people that I've worked for. Maybe most recently, my hero is Shri Shivananda, that I worked for in PayPal. Shri was an amazing leader to work for. He is both kind and challenging at the same time. And he's the kind of leaders that will ask you questions, and you would think that he's criticizing you, but it's not, because he's deeply interested in the smallest things in what you do. And has been instrumental in my growth as a leader, in my career, in support, and really just a kind and passionate human being that I have the privilege of working for and with. And I like to think of as a friend. I don't know, maybe he thinks differently, but that's hero. Hobby. If you would have asked my wife 4 years ago, before the pandemic, if you would ask my wife what my hobby was, she'll tell you that it's my work. found out that that's not really healthy. Most recently, I started playing guitar during COVID.
Oh, cool.
Started doing some rock climbing. I bake, which is something I didn't think I would do, but I bake.
What's your best bake?
I bake bread.
Oh, okay. What is your signature? If you're a go-to bread, what is your signature?
Challah bread.
Oh,
I try to do it every Friday, but
okay. Next time I'm in Salt Lake, I'll have to give it a try.
Yeah.
And
we have this thing every month. We do an Ask Me Anything, and we have a wheel, and we highlight a couple of people from the team. We talk about them and what they've done, and you have to be nominated. But the people that are nominated get to spin the wheel, and on it, one of the things you can win is I make you bread. And so last time, two people actually landed on that. I had to spend the weekend creating those.
So your hobby, your work became your hobby quite literally, because you took home your work to have to be your hobby at that point.
Yeah, but somehow it morphed into that, but it's fine.
Yeah. And the biggest risk you ever took?
Biggest risk I ever took. Oh God, I took a lot of risks. Let's do this, because as a young person, especially a young person in the military, you take risks, but you're not necessarily aware of how much of a risk you've taken.
Yeah.
I will share this. Also going back to COVID times, we had some people that were suffering from stress as people were shutting down, and this is early COVID, so we still have a lot of uncertainty in what's happening, a lot of fear. And somebody on my team that has dealt with post-trauma had a relapse of PTSD. And as background, I've been suffering from PTSD for years now, and it's something that I've been managing and handling, dealing with through a lot of different venues. But it's not something I've ever shared with anybody. And that moment where that person came up and said, "Hey, I'm suffering from this," There was a moment they were actually afraid to talk about that there will be some retaliation. There is a lot of stigma. There is a lot of fear with mental challenges, and it woke something up in me, and share my story with my team and the company. So I went to this huge channel, like thousands of people in Slack, and I wrote the whole thing of like, "Yeah, this is me. This is what happened to me." Sharing to let people know they're safe, because I'm a leader in the company, and that can create safety for other people to see the line. I sat on that Slack message for 3 days before hitting enter. It was scary. It also created an interesting situation where everybody in PayPal knew, but my family back home didn't. My wife did. The rest of my family did.
Oh wow! So you announced it to a whole public company before you told your wider family.
Yes, but that actually helped. It was risky. It was scary as hell. That actually helped me get on a better healing path.
Yeah.
Start talking about it. It helped me climb a wall and get through, where I didn't have it before, or it was very much a conversation I had. No, I don't think with my kids, really. But definitely scary.
Do you think, like, obviously for yourself, like, and lots of people like you who have served in military responsibilities, and I assume that's probably where your PTSD comes from.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's challenging then for people? I mean, we're off topic, Miles, but
go for it. Yeah.
Like for me to talk about it, I would feel a little bit like, well, I get Assaf, like he's been in a war zone. Like I should have PTSD. This is just like my life. Like I'm just feeling the stresses and the pressures of normal, like corporate existence. Like, how do you get over that? Like, there's stigma obviously attached, right? It's never. I don't think we're good enough at talking full stop. And I think that's been a topic we've had multiple times here. But like, I feel like when it's related to like combat zones and stuff, people are slightly better at it. but like I feel like people then feel scared to share it when they don't have like a, well, they don't have what they feel like is a real reason. Do you know what I mean? Like it sounds weird.
This is the same conversation that mentally that I had with myself. What the hell are you whining about? You came out and you still have all your limbs and you're alive, and nobody, like, you don't have any physical injury. So why the hell are you? Why the hell are you talking about yourself or thinking about yourself as somebody that is impacted by this? Like we can go on and litigate reasons for things as much as we want, but it's not going to be helpful. And to be honest, it's not. There is a ton of shame in mental illness and challenges. There is always shame. There is shame if you were in a war zone or if you weren't in the war zone to go and talk about it. And I think we need to start normalizing that. As leaders, we need to start normalizing that because our people are suffering through things that they need to handle. And I've been involved with an NGO called Cyberminds.
I know Cyberminds,
out of Australia. And one of the things that I talked to their leaders, they had a research done that talked about security, cybersecurity ops people that are in the front line of everything that we do. And the burnout and mental impact for cybersecurity operations people is higher than first-line medical responders.
I didn't. Wow, that's a crazy stat.
And they did this research in Australia, and that was crazy to me. That was we are losing people to the profession. We're losing good people to a profession. Well, we don't have enough people anyhow.
Yeah.
Because this is a profession that is hard. It's taxing. It's you constantly context switching. You never really finish anything because there is always something. Like your Sisyphus rolling the boulder uphill. This is a really good, by the way, advert if anybody wants to join security.
Maybe don't play this one to the recruitment world.
Yeah. Like it's a never-ending task, and yes, you have wins in the way, but there is always something out there, so you never get reprieve.
Yeah.
And we need to start talking about it because it's normal, and people can get PTSD from a lot of different places. Then it doesn't necessarily just have to be PTSD. People can get burned out or stressed, and that's fine. Let's have the conversation because I think it's better to have the conversation than not have it. Now, having said that, I sat on it for years. Like it took me years and years to muster up the courage to actually go and talk about it.
What was the response? Because like, it's brave, right? I would feel uncomfortable, I think now, like say I'm going to put on the Slack channel to the whole of like anecdotes, any moments of like stress or pressure in my life that I felt like, I feel like, I don't know if that's the right message. So what was the response?
It was overwhelmingly positive. And it allowed me to open up in a way and feel safe in a way that I have not in the workplace before. Now I'm tearing up. I don't know.
No, I appreciate you sharing it. I think it's important. Like, how do you think we get better? You mentioned the fact that we're losing people to stress and to anxiety and to depression and so on, other things, right, at a rapid and alarming rate. And the stat against first-line responders is terrifying, quite frankly. How do you think we get better? Should we have, like, you talked about Ask Me Anything time. Should we like have open communication channels in like a physical conversational room or in the Slack, or should we just facilitate people? What do you think is the best way to help people or enable people to talk?
I think normalize it.
Yeah.
Remove the shame. There's a ton of shame. This is now one of the first things that I do when I go working with. I'm suffering from this, and I'm going to therapy because that's part of my management of myself and getting better. By the way, to my shame, it almost never showed up at work. There is this thing called mission brain, where when you're at work, you're focusing on work. I broke down at home, which I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with the person I was, basically, and that is something that I share, and I hope that the ability to share that and removes shame and blame and fear out of the equation. I think we all need to be open and have a conversation about what we're doing and how we're doing in our lives. I know this is a corporate setting, so don't go over things, but still be mindful, be empathetic to what people are going through. Still hold everybody up to a bar and still focus on the work that needs to be done. But I don't know of better ways. Again, talked about Cyberminds, no doubt to them. They're doing a really good job with teams and building resiliency across different places. I've worked with them when I was in PayPal. But I think we need more of that. We need more of that conversation and more of those tools. So even the simple stuff, like everybody, most companies provide stuff like mental support. So if somebody needs it, just remind them that that's possible.
I guess the antagonist in me would say, do companies provide it though because they really care, or do they provide it because it looks like a good benefit on like the website? Like, is it driven home to really help?
Doesn't matter. It's there. Yeah. As a leader, do whatever you can do with it, or as an employee, do whatever. It's there for use.
I think your point about the fact that you don't have it at work, but you take it home resonates. I think a lot of us can kind of compartmentalize these things in the back of our head and do the mission critical stuff, which we see as kind of this is us, and it almost occupies you and takes you away from that. But once you shut that off for the day, like this creeps back in and can kind of affect you and also affect the relationships that actually matter most to people who support you most, not the ones in the workplace. God bless everyone who works with us, but like they're really the ones at home, and it's often those that feel the damage of like the things that we hold back or that we've pushed down inside when you can't stop it because you're in those relaxed home settings and it creeps in. It's interesting. I think that's an interesting thought to talk about as well, not just like how workplaces help, but trying to work out what your triggers are. Because sometimes I said your triggers aren't always necessarily like this happens and therefore this happens. Like sometimes it's like until I shut off, then this all comes in and I can't really control it. So I suppose it's learning kind of how to cope with that kind of mechanism rather than just a direct A equals B type relationship. Interesting. I could go on about this for ages, but I want to move on to some other topics as well. But I think I will pick this back.
I'm trying to avoid the hard questions.
Yeah, I think I will pick this back with you at some point. And I think there's some interesting thoughts that came out of this. But you obviously talked about having it originating from your military service, and you obviously, along with many people who I've worked with from Israel and Tel Aviv particularly, have been part of the IDF. Now, I kind of preempted you on this question before we spoke because I think it's a fascinating topic. What I see as interesting is we have so many people I watch with unbelievable technical expertise, but also founders mentality, driving businesses, like changing disruption, come out of that ecosystem versus like Ivy League education in the US or the top universities in the UK and Europe. Why? Well, what is happening there that you can tell us? But it actually is creating this like almost production line of like quality leadership.
You see, now I'm thinking whether I want to add to conspiracy theories or not. And so I can go and say, like, we get injected when we join. we don't. I want to be clear. But I think a few things. One is tied directly to the IDF. The other is tied to just the entrepreneurial spirit and culture that's evolved in Israel over the last 30, 40, 50 years, probably coming from just the sake of being a small country that's trying to create something. Yeah. And so you have to be entrepreneurial to a point. But I'll tell you, there are two things in the military, specifically in the IDF, that help. One is it's much less rigid than other militaries. So the power distance is lower than the power distance of other militaries, and two, you get opportunities that you would have never gotten in your life. I was a 21-year-old first lieutenant, and I got to manage 60 people.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
Who the hell would give a 20? By the way, on mission critical stuff, who the hell would give a 21-year-old 60 people to manage in normal? So you go through these like experiences that are basically bonkers because you get the opportunity out of the sheer point of being there and serving and leading for things. And mine was easy here, like in the sense, like you have people that are leading people through combat. I'd never led people through combat. So you have those experiences that you're building up, and then on the other side, I'll give you an example. When I left the military, I was freshly married, and I left the military. I was on the career trajectory in the military, and I decided to go back to civilian life. And everybody said, "You're crazy. Why are you leaving the military? You have this thing here. Why aren't you not staying career?" And I had my reasons, and I make my choice. And I went to work for the Israeli government, which is the governmental ISP. When I went and told my boss that I'm leaving the government to open a startup, it wasn't, "You're crazy, why are you leaving?" "Oh, that sounds great. How can I be involved?"
So it's a mindset that goes through the ranks in not just the military, but the government and culturally.
Yeah. And going back to the lack of rigidity in the military, I could go, and I was lucky because I had good commanding officers. I could go yell at them as a second lieutenant or first lieutenant or a captain. I could yell at my lieutenant colonel or colonel, and they would be fine with it and we would have a debate. So you get a lot of agency, and you get a lot of freedom to run your area and what you're doing, and then you have a culture that tells you leaving to start something new is acceptable. You're not going to be challenged. Nobody's going to tell you nobody's going to tell you how risky it is. Will laud you. The other thing that it creates is a network of people that have been in this place. If you look at cybersecurity, to the detriment of you don't have newer ideas, and we need to expand that vastly. But if you look at the cybersecurity industry in Israel, as big as it is, it's all people that serve with other people in the same place in the military.
Yeah, everyone knows each other. I've become very aware of that very quickly.
So it's a very very small place, but that you see somebody else that's done that. You see another person that's done that. Another person that's done that, and so you gravitate into it. It's actually amazing to see. It's something that I don't think has been mimicked in other places.
It's interesting. I suppose the 3 points I take from it is one is this opportunities given to young people they wouldn't normally have. So if you look in like most places, you wouldn't find like kids at college or university like operating and managing a leadership role of 60 to X number of people and having those kind of responsibilities to deliver mission critical operations while managing those teams. And the second is also this cultural or national identity of kind of entrepreneurship, of wanting to do something different, of being supportive, of creating these ecosystems where there is kind of a founder mentality and very much an advisor mentality constantly in too. I think the other one that you didn't mention, well, you sort of mentioned, which I think I see a lot, is a real value around family. Most people I've met from the Israel movement, they marry quite young, and they start their families quite young, comparably to Europe or to the US. I think that I've always thought that creates kind of this different attitude, this different selflessness, this ability to compromise and to deliver in a way which you don't get if you just kind of wait until you're like mid-30s to take those kind of leaps and have to kind of compromise with a partner on quite all things. So I think, yeah, it's fascinating. Next question. PayPal. You spent a long time at PayPal.
Yeah, years.
And there's a lot. I mean, PayPal's a crazy org. Like anyone who wants, you can Google all kinds of things about PayPal and the kind of situations that Assaf probably found himself in frequently, with all kinds of complexities as they rolled out payment competitive solutions across multiple governments and geos and regions. What's the biggest lesson you learned and the hardest or worst thing that happened while you were at PayPal?
I'm not going to talk about the hardest or worst thing that happened.
Okay, fine. What's the biggest lesson you learned?
I am bound by many things. The biggest lesson I learned in PayPal is that as security people, we should not wait for somebody to give us permission.
That's an interesting one.
And in a lot of places, if I sum up my failures, is in waiting for somebody to give me permission to something that I think I knew I needed.
So
And
act before asked.
yeah, and not even act before. Let's dive into that. By the way, my favorite leadership topic. Happy to dive in, but let me say another thing before we go there. Also, scale and complexity. It's completely different.
Because PayPal grew massively during your time, right? You're talking about exponential growth.
Yeah, PayPal grew massively. It's extremely complex because it's a financial company with multiple regulations and international complexities. At the same time, it's a tech company that's going fast and driving things. By the way, we've done things in those years that they are still cutting edge, and we've done them years ago. So amazing team, really smart people. I think the consensus is you just go and you always get challenged because everybody is really smart and really pushing towards the common goal. Very proud of the team and what they're doing. So proud of what they're doing today. Sean that replaced me is an amazing person. I love him. So I'm really happy that that's how they landed. But going back to my first point. If there is one leadership book that I suggest to people, there are a lot. I had my stint of reading leadership books. There's a lot that are good. If there is one, it's a book called "Turn the Ship Around" by David Marquette, and that's a book that talks about a U.S. Navy submarine captain that had a detour from where he was supposed to go to a different ship, and what he talks about a lot is intent-based leadership. It's changing the paradigm from, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do because I'm your leader, to, hey, I intend to do this thing. I'm letting you know. And I've been trying to practice. It's hard, by the way. It's hard to practice that because you go into a room full of people and you have a conversation and you think you know what needs to happen, so you say. But the moment you tell people what should happen, then they lost their ability. You're their leader. They lost their ability to challenge. They lost the ability to think for themselves. They might have ideas, but your idea is stronger because of it. And so shifting it around into being the last person to speak or putting onus on the team to come up with what the plan should be. Is difficult. It's something that is really important. Back to the conversation on failure and waiting for permission. I think it's even more harsh than what I just said on intent-based leadership. Sometimes as security people, we know that we need to do something, and it's difficult because you have to do change management, and you have to change behaviors, and you have to change cultures, and we sometimes tend to sit on it and wait for somebody who can do it, and we need to change that. We need to talk about what needs to be done. That's been something that I've learned in my 9 years, well, even before that. That I think has been a big conversational mental model for myself when I'm thinking things as they happen. You wait because on some things you should wait, or do you push on? And being proactive and pushing on things is a really important piece in security leadership, not just leadership, for people as a whole.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's something that I'm quite keen on, is trying to state the vision, but not how you get there. Say this is what we want to achieve in this quarter or this half, and then I'll check in with you regularly to see what's going on. But otherwise, get on with it. I think that's kind of my style. It's Yair who runs Anecdotes is very similar. He's kind of this is our vision as a company. You guys need to step up and make it happen. I'm not gonna drag anyone there. You either want to come with me or you don't. But it also comes at there's a very fine line. I myself sometimes I think I act before I think. Sometimes I'm probably too far that direction. So I've made many mistakes in my career. I've just acted before I've thought, and after I've thought, that was a terrible idea. Like, why did I do that? But you've got to find that fine balance, right, between driving forward, but not like taking that breath to think before you push. I think that's a skill which you just hope. Well, I'm still learning, but you hone.
Yeah, no. Look, life is a journey, and we always fail, and that's also part of the conversation. Like we'll make decisions, might be the best decision in the moment or the worst decision in the moment, but we failed. The idea is to identify it and rectify it and move on. Also, something, by the way, going back to the IDF, that the IDF does really well is post-mortem analysis and after action reports. Very blameless, very focused on what happened, how we fix it.
I've never thought about this, but this is fascinating. So when we obviously, for those who don't know, I work for this is about Anecdotes, which is an Israeli Tel Aviv-based company, and a lot of our R&D staff are based out in Tel Aviv, including members of my team. And I've never thought before, but you're right. When we do root cause on a customer problem or an incident or something that happened, people are phenomenal at doing it. Like, just no emotional attachment. They will literally just write down, I did this, and this is what caused this. And I'm just like, people would find a way to definitely like kind of shrug that off in other situations. But it's just this.
No, it's very, very clean cut and very, very self-correcting.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that model because it makes us better.
Yeah, interesting. I'm going to ask I had a whole set of questions planned on automation and AI, but I'm conscious of time. And I'm going to ask you one and then going to wrap up, and I'm probably going to get you back at some point.
Problem.
This is a topic we've talked about a lot before, but you're a big automator. I'm a big automator. I think that everything we should try and automate. I think we've had conversations before, both of us, about like there's things that you can and things that you can't automate. What I see right now is a lot of conversation around kind of AI is going to drive automation in a way it's never happened before. And I think there's some great stuff in that. And I think there's a lot of nonsense in that. There's my question. Is AI changing the game in terms of security and IT broader automation, or is it just another part of the journey?
I think, yes. It's definitely evolving the way we operate and the capabilities that we have. It's better for some things right now, and it's worse for other things. It's really good at large text analytics, for example, and it's not still very good at very complex tasks that need a body of knowledge and understanding of the environment. It's evolving as we speak. It's very quickly evolving. But I'll tell you this. I used to, and I'm still envious of my peers in PayPal that did fraud risk management, fraud abuse. When something would break down and there was an incident that passed through the models, because everything is AI based in that world, then they would go in and say, where did the model break? And how do we fix the model to make sure that we are catching this thing from happening again? We in security still deal with the individual incident.
Yeah, we don't talk about the model. We talk about the problem itself.
We talk about the specific incident. If we're good, we talk about the overlying or underlying problem, and if we're better, we're talking about the underlying trend.
Yeah.
But we are still not very good at systematically fixing things.
Yeah.
In our industry and our ecosystem. That's something that we've been chasing for a long, long time. I hope for us as an industry that we are starting to shift into places where we are fixing the model and dealing and making sure that people are not dealing with, I'll be very honest, and this is in your world in that as well. We still have people copy pasting questionnaires.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Yeah, we need to shift away from that and start solving classes of problems.
Yeah.
And start enabling the business. So I have high hopes for the technology advancement. By the way, this is not like, it's not like we woke up 2 years ago and suddenly there was AI. AI has been there as something that we've been doing as an industry for a long, long time. My first startup was an AI startup, a machine learning startup.
I did the same. I was at IBM when Watson was launched. It was 2012, and that was AI.
Yeah, no, it's something that it's a continuation of a journey that we've had on the ability of machines to tackle complex problems. And we've started this, we've done a lot of automation and very discrete automation. Now we're shifting into a world where it's non-discrete automation. It's a bit more fuzzy. We're going to utilize these models and these capabilities to decide on their own actions. That's exciting, but it's not the end all be all. There will still be a lot of work to be done. Nobody is getting fired because of it. We don't have enough people in security, let alone but hopefully our people are going to be dealing with better, more robust problems versus the menial day-to-day tasks that we're still doing in a lot of places.
I think that's a great point, and I think your point around the fact that people have this fear factor that AI is going to replace everyone, especially in like industries like SOC or security, there'll be no more roles. I think the reality of what you say is that a lot of these processes aren't automatable. There will always be a requirement for human subjectivity and for the human mind. I think it's fundamental. This has been fascinating. I'd love to talk for another half an hour, but I can't. So I have a kind of standard procedure that I ask my guest. The last question that comes from one of my previous guests. You never know who is going to go to what the question is. Ironically, we talked about leadership earlier, and it's come from, you can look through the YouTube, you'll work out who it came from, but it came from an expert in leadership. And his question is, who is the greatest leader of all time, and what one characteristic makes them the greatest leader of all time?
Who is the greatest leader of all time?
It's a hard one, isn't it? I looked at it and went,
I don't know. I need to think about it.
Interesting. I've stumped you.
Yeah, you have. I'm going through people. It's really hard.
It is, isn't it?
Especially these days.
I saw it and thought that's got to be like, am I thinking of like modern tech leadership, politicians, like founding fathers of countries, not just the US, like religious leaders, like it's like there's a lot.
I'm sorry, I can't.
It's fine. Don't worry. We finally found. It's the first time it's happened. We found a question for that stumped the current guest. I like it. Don't worry, because I'll come to you afterwards on Slack and ask for your question for the next guest, and you can be equally difficult. The same thing may happen again. Maybe we'll start a trend of no one answering. But Assaf, thank you. I've appreciated your time, your insights. It's been brilliant. I think you represent everything good in the security world, and I've said that to you personally, so it's not just a public statement. But I appreciate your time and spending time with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And to everyone out there, thank you for listening. Your comments, as always, are welcome in the box. And if you want to reach out, Assaf is available via LinkedIn and other public media sources should you want to ask him your questions. But thank you all, and I'll see you again next time. Take care.